Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're taking a look at Berbera, a port city in Somaliland, but we're doing it through the eyes of someone who actually stayed. Meet Anatoli, a retired professor who found a reality that's worlds away from the grim stories we usually hear. And right away, Anatoli just lays it all out on the table. You've got this one story, right? The story from the whirlwind tourists who pop in for 2 days, see what they expect to see, and leave calling it terrible. But then there's his story. And he's asking a pretty bold question. Is it terrible at all?
So let's dig into that myth first, because when you look at official travel warnings or news headlines, or even those quick travel vlogs, they all seem to be singing from the same hymn sheet, and it's not a happy tune. Yeah, this is the version of the story most of us know. It's all about instability, danger, and a lack of development. It's the narrative Anatoly himself was familiar with before he decided to stay. Not for 2 days, but for 5 months. And what he found was something else entirely.
So what started to change his mind? Well, Anatoly, who calls this his third life, just started noticing the little things, the everyday details that simply didn't line up with that terrible script he'd been sold.
And it's these totally normal, almost mundane things that start to pick apart the stereotype. We're not talking about huge political shifts here. We're talking about clean shoes, modern buildings, and people who take pride in their appearance. It's this quiet, powerful evidence of a normal, functioning society.
Okay, and this is where the story gets really, really interesting. Berbera, through Anatoly's eyes, isn't some hidden paradise. No, it's a place full of contradictions, a place where things that look like chaos on the surface are actually part of a surprisingly orderly way of life. That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, if all the official advice is screaming danger, but daily life feels orderly, what's the real story? Well, Anatoly's experience offers a pretty shocking answer. This slide just captures that paradox perfectly. You look around, and the visuals scream danger zone. You've got barbed wire everywhere, guys walking around with Kalashnikovs, and traffic that looks like a free-for-all. But the feeling on the ground, it's one of safety and community. And maybe nothing illustrates this better than the local police. Just think about that for a second. The police, often a symbol of authority you'd be wary of, are described as friendly guys you'd pick up and give a lift into town. Anatoly says that unlike in other places, the police here never stop him to check his papers. They just stop him to say hello. So those men with the Kalashnikovs, they're not a threat. They're just your neighbors who happen to be cops.
And the driving is another perfect example of this. To an outsider, it looks like absolute madness, a total disaster waiting to happen. But for Anatoly, who's actually on the road there, it's a system that works on pure intuition. Yeah, there aren't many rules, but there also aren't that many cars, so it all just kind of flows.
And the surprises just keep coming when you look at the cost of living. In a place that's supposed to be so underdeveloped, life is remarkably affordable. Anatoly points out that a week's worth of food costs 2 to 3 times less than it would in Europe. That alone makes a completely different kind of lifestyle possible.
But it's not all just about these paradoxes in the city. Anatoly points to one place in particular that he says is the ultimate takedown of that terrible, terrible, terrible narrative. And it's a place most of those 2-day visitors probably never even see.
He says this is one of the biggest reasons he's so happy here. The beach isn't just a scenic backdrop. It's the core of his daily life. It's the center of a peaceful, beautiful community that is the exact opposite of what you'd expect.
I mean, just picture this for a minute. You're swimming every single day at sunrise. Camels are just chilling out by the water, and you see dolphins swimming offshore. This is the reality that exists alongside the barbed wire and the Kalashnikovs. It's a peaceful, almost dreamlike routine that just shatters every single stereotype you might have.
So what's the big takeaway here? Look, Anatoly's story isn't about pretending the region's problems don't exist. It's about showing that the reality is so much more complex, more contradictory, and in a lot of ways, much more human than any headline could ever capture.
This is basically his blueprint for understanding a place like Berbera. You've got to be willing to look past the surface level stuff. You have to see the friendly policeman who also happens to be holding a Kalashnikov. And you have to accept that both of those things can be true at the same time.
Of course, there's still the question of risk, and Anatoly knows there are real dangers. I mean, a huge chunk of the Somaliland budget is spent on security. But he has this really interesting, almost philosophical way of thinking about it.
And that just sums it up perfectly, doesn't it? For him, the theoretical risk, the dinosaur,
is just that, a theory. His day-to-day reality is made up of sunrise swims and friendly cops, a life that is anything but terrible. And his story really makes you wonder how much of our view of the world is shaped by the dinosaurs we're afraid of instead of the reality people are actually living.